And three, two, one, action. What's going on, everybody? It's Alex with Wollaston Real Estate Investments, and welcome to the WREI TV and Talk Radio Show. I am accompanied by my beautiful business partner, Harrison Bonner, with two N's. And today we've got a stud from New Jersey named Marek. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello, guys. I'm great. I'm happy to be part of this podcast today, and thank you for inviting me.
That's awesome. So a little bit of background just for anybody that's, checking us out. So Harrison and I were in a real estate community called Fortune Builders, which was like a real estate education platform. And part of the perks of being in that is that we were on a Facebook group. So Mark and I actually connected over a post that I did last week, and Mark wanted to jump on and kind of share his story. We as real estate entrepreneurs, we're all going through different journeys with ups and downs, and it's awesome to share and learn from each other. So Mark's gonna share a little bit of his story, how he broke into to the business, and it sounds like he's on to some really big things, because last time when we spoke, you said you had just wrapped up your first hotel deal.
Correct.
Wow. Cool. Awesome. So super excited to get into it. Why don't you also said that you are an immigrant to the country, and real estate has really changed your life. Would you share a little bit kind of about your journey into the country? What was that like? Why'd you want to come here? And then ultimately, how'd you fall into real estate?
Wonderful. So once again, thank you for being part of this podcast today. I'm super excited. So my name is Mark again. First generation immigrant, came to this country about 22 years ago. My mother immigrated first with her boyfriend, and because she could not really imagine her life without us, she says to us, "You have to come here." And her boyfriend had a little different plan. He came to America, kind of just pass by a few years and then come back to check and inherit like a lot of money. So he told us, as I was back in Czech Republic, that the dollars are growing here on the trees. So I was like, I'm going to America. I'm working at the factory for $300 a month. I'm going to pick up the dollars from the trees. So I found a way to get a student visa. I arrived 23 years ago in New York City, and I took this course, English as a second language, for about 3 weeks. And then my mother picked me up from New York and drove me to Trenton, New Jersey. And that's when the really fun started. Really the awakening, what America is all about. A lot of hard work. You have to really start at the bottom of the bottom. And I never really worked that hard in my life. I was only 22 years old. Before then I was working at the factory, like very easy job back in Czech Republic. And I came here, and my first job was working at the construction site as a helper, carrying bricks from masons and just preparing all the bricks for them so they can build the walls. And man, I got my ass kicked, and then just the pay, at the end of the day, I was the lowest paid worker because you're the helper. So, the beginnings were very hard. And I really appreciate everything I've done, since then. It was just a stepping stone from working the construction site all the way, fast forward 23 years, and I own a pretty decent real estate portfolio. I'm very grateful. And as I mentioned, I also bought a hotel about 2.5 years ago.
So I think the pressing question that everybody wants to know is, do you do your own masonry work?
No, I do not. I do not.
Were you ever a mason, or did you stay as a laborer when you were doing masonry?
Yeah. So, the laborer was basically the lowest paid employee of the company. And eventually I was stepping, I was learning the craft, and I was the one putting the bricks on the wall. You got rewarded in a different way. Like every time you put a brick on the wall, you earn 50 cents. The more bricks you put on the wall, the more you earn, during the day. So my career was that I eventually, got into being a mason, but that lasted for about 3 or 4 months. And then my mother approached me to start a cleaning company. So, the construction work is generally very seasonal. So as you get into December, it slows down, especially in the masonry business. You have to cover the scaffold, and you have to have the heaters to really continue the work. So I'm like, well, let me start a cleaning company with my mother during the winter time. I never looked back. I never went back to construction after that.
Yeah. Harrison and I were just talking about cleaning companies because we've heard that they're pretty lucrative. Um, how long did you do that for?
Yeah, so I shifted into cleaning homes with my mother. It was basically her and I started, putting advertisements all over the communities, and then we started getting phone calls. Little quick story. When I was starting out, I didn't really speak that well English. So as we were getting the phone calls, first the customers were expecting women to answer the phone call. Second, they were hoping to get somebody who speaks pretty good English. So they got none of it, And so right at the beginning, when I was answering the phone calls, it was a lot of no's. No, thank you. No, thank you. And quick story, a woman called, and her simple question was, how much do you charge? And I didn't know the word charge. I knew the word church. So I'm like, Mom, they just call us to clean a church. So when I told her, we can clean the church, another phone call, no, thank you. So eventually, we because we were pretty good cleaners, we built the business by word of mouth. So that's how we built the business. Rather than getting the phone calls, people start referring us. And I had the cleaning company for about 13 years. I just officially resigned about 2 years ago when I sold it to my employees for about $50,000.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
And I had a pretty large cleaning company, but after COVID, there was a big shift. A lot of people moved away from the area, and also a lot of people didn't feel comfortable to have their houses cleaned.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a weird time for a lot of people.
Right.
It was a weird time for a lot of people. So when did you always want to be in real estate, or did you kind of fall into it by accident? How did that happen?
So I have to give a lot of credit to my wife. Wish she was here with me. But she was the stepping stone for us to get into real estate. So we've read some books at the beginning, but the books give you kind of indications, but doesn't really tell you what to really do. So I read a couple books, but I really didn't know what to do. But my wife, eventually, when we kind of got more serious, she's like, it's time to buy a home. And one of our mentors told us, you have to buy multifamily. So she started researching. We were not really qualified to get a mortgage. So she found a multifamily on a Craigslist. Immigrants, let's just meet with the guy. Not much knowledge about what's after repair value, what is the right price to buy. What's just really sounded appealing on a Craigslist was, I'm willing to hold a mortgage. So that was huge for us. And my wife's like, let's do it the European way. We came to our meeting with a bag full of cash, and we're like, let's do the deal. And the guy, when we opened the bag with the cash, he's like, oh my God, are these people for real?
You should have told me you're part of the Eastern European mafia. You probably could have got a better deal.
Yeah, he was in shock. So, we showed him the money. We're like, we're good for it. We're going to put a nice skin in the game. We went through the whole inspection period, but we got the report and we didn't really know what to do with the report. So we bought the home totally retail. The guy was super happy. He's a real estate broker. We're friends to this date. He cannot believe how far we have come over the period of 15 years. And as a matter of fact, we're working on some deals together right now. But luckily, with the market, we own the home for 15 years. So with the market being so strong, the house is now worth almost triple what we bought it for.
Wow.
So that was 2009, 2010.
Yeah, around the time. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Congratulations. So, for everybody that doesn't really know, when he said what was so important is that he could hold a mortgage, that's like seller financing. So that means it's actually a really good way to do your first deal, especially if you don't have, if credit worthiness is a challenge, or if you don't have, maybe enough cash. Sometimes you can negotiate um, basically these seller financing, and that's where the landlord or the homeowner agrees to sell you the property, but they also act like the bank. So they say you can pay it over time, and then eventually you can make some form of exit through like a home refinance, for example, or a property sale. But it's a great way to come into control of a piece of real estate without actually having to come up with all the money. So kudos. That was would contribute that to a little bit of blind luck, but look what you built into it.
Yeah, definitely blind luck. Also, my wife really pushing me is like, it's time to buy something and just invest our money. But we also, by buying this first home, we inherit the bad tenants. He just left the tenants behind. We didn't know really much about tenant landlord laws. So, we got our ass kicked in that department. But we found a niche. After we got the people out, we found a niche in corporate housing and Princeton off-campus housing. So apartments which were generally rented for $1,200 a month, we found a niche where we started renting them for $2,500, $3,000, $3,500 with furniture. And that property eventually, we generally, as a real estate investors, we're looking at return on the investment, right? How much money we put down and how much cash flow we're gonna get for that 12 months period, and then we get a cash on cash return. So when we first bought the property, we were looking at like 7 to 8% cash on cash return, which we didn't know anything about. When we started really when we finished those two apartments, we got them, nicely renovated, and then we started collecting $3,500 per apartment. That property started generating about $7,000 a month on a $2,500 mortgage payment.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like I mean the returns are so beautiful. Right now I already rented the house for 7 months to 8 Princeton employees. They have a big construction project in Princeton. They're paying about $7,000 a month, and our mortgage payment is about $1,700 a month. So it's about $5,000 every month cash flow.
And you still live there?
We don't live there anymore, no.
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, even that's 7,000 for all 3 units.
It's duplex. It's
Oh,
35.
the duplex. Oh, cool.
$3,500 per side.
Cool. So even when you were living on one side, you were
Right.
still covering your payment with just leasing the one unit, which is rare in a multifamily. Our first deal, and we always, if I'm ever talking to someone who's new to real estate or wants to get into the business, I always, especially if they're young, I always tell them the first deal you should do is a multifamily house hack type of deal.
Mm-hmm. And it does, it always works. Especially, in today's world, I would say they have to start looking at 3 units and plus. It's harder to do it with duplexes these days unless you can still get them cheap enough. But it's a great way to get in real estate and kind of get the feet wet. So,
absolutely. And it lowers your monthly living expense, so you're just automatically sort of de-risking, like, we left our jobs, like we didn't have, any other income. So like we really needed to just live as cheaply as possible for as long as we could. And that's the best way to do it. I mean, you were even doing more than that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. So with this niche that you found, was it basically like a per room rental, and it was a contract with Princeton, and you basically had like an individual, tenant per bedroom, or did they take over the entire apartment at 3,500?
No, so the way we really learned about the market and tested the market, we when we bought the duplex, we were still living nearby in an apartment complex. And it was the time when Airbnb started like booming. And my wife and like, well, let's see what happens. Let's put our apartment on Airbnb. And we were paying at the time $1,200. I'm sure that we signed somewhere in the lease, no sublet allowed. But we don't really pay attention to that. Immigrants, we don't read the paperwork that well. As long as you pay your monthly rent, you're good. So we put our rental on Airbnb, and the demand is just going through the roof. We're like, wow, we're paying $1,200 and we get inquiries for $4,000 a month. So we basically started subletting our apartment until we got caught, and our landlord told us, "Hey, look, if you don't stop this, we're gonna evict you, and you'll be responsible for the remaining of the lease." So we said, "I'm sorry, we didn't know." And what happened was, at that time, we evicted the people out of the duplex because they were long-term tenants we inherited from the previous owner. And we moved our furniture from the apartment into that duplex. And at that time, the landlord didn't want to let us go and release us for the lease. So we were sleeping on empty floors while people were enjoying our Airbnb units in our duplex. And we were literally living homeless. But that's how we really tested the market. We're like, wow, Lawrenceville and Princeton area is just on fire. When it comes to business, pharmaceutical companies, there's always demand for short-term housing. And then the Princeton off-campus housing came later on as we started approaching the universities and the local pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies. So the leads are coming from every direction, not just Airbnb.
Very cool. Do is your wife still heavily involved in the business with you?
My wife is, now heavily involved in raising children, but she does have her say, in what I do.
Of course, that's awesome. I've spoken to a handful of, high performers, and every single high performer has a good story of being able to work with their partner, their wife. Every single one of them that really crushes it, has that team dynamic, and talks about how they help pull each other up substantially. So that's cool. That's awesome. Congratulations. So you're doing more rentals, right? I saw it looks like you've built up a portfolio of those.
Um, you said short-term rental?
That's what I thought I saw one on one of your, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, we do specialize in short-term rental housing for two reasons. Number one, the money is guaranteed. They pay you before they move in. That's number one. Second, we maintain the units. So, if you have a long-term tenant and he's there for 2 years, generally, you're gonna get left with a lot of repairs. Not that many tenants are really good tenants. So with the short-term rental, it is a little bit more work. I have to say that a lot of times I am in the technician mode as well as manager. I'm not fully entrepreneur yet, where everything's automated. I want to get to a certain number a month where I can say, okay, this is what you do as a manager, and this is what you do as a technician for my business. I'm slowly getting there. I had a huge hiccup during the COVID as a real estate investor, which kind of slow down the growth. But ultimately, the short-term rental, I want to specialize more about midterm, so not as many turnovers. But but that's the ultimate goal, like turning over the room, the apartments, keep them, in good shape, and you don't have as much maintenance. So, I have buildings which I own for now 7-8 years, and there's a very little damage in them. Floors are in good condition, walls are untouched, kitchens are in good condition. Time to time when we have an Indian client coming to our property for 3 months, the places are extremely messy, but messy, not damaged.
Okay.
Yep.
So are you guys doing more single family for these short-term rentals, or is it all multifamily?
All multifamilies.
All multifamilies. What
Yep.
and average building size? Like how many units?
So we started with the duplex. Then we bought a couple condominiums because they were just across the street from our house. They were relatively cheap, and it made sense because they were in one building. So we owned a building with 2 condos in it. Then there was a deal we purchased about a year ago. It was an 8-unit apartment building, which we converted into 6-unit apartment building. That was our first commercial deal where the bank looks at the income rather than the comps, right? Anything over 4 units, they look at the income. So it took me about 5 years to convince the buyer. To convince the seller to sell me the property. And so that's a 6-unit apartment building right in downtown Lawrenceville. And then we have a few multifamilies, like 3-family, 4-family. And then we got the hotel, which original plan for the hotel was this is going to be an add-on to our short-term rental business, but it turned into hospitality, which I wasn't really aware of. But now in hospitality, I'm like, wow, how did I get myself into hospitality? But I have to say, like, I sometimes feel like a little bit like a calling. It's a really cool business where you meet a lot of different people from a lot of different industries. And as you might know, both of you, that we are like our network is our basically, how do you say it, that sentence?
Your network is your net worth?
Exactly. Thank you. So, a lot of times it's not about your skills, it's about who you know. And, if I can say one thing I got from Fortune Builders, like they introduced me to the right people. And I always was in my back of my head, like, where are the people who wants to grow and who wants to do things? Like, where are they? And I never knew there was a real estate networking events. I didn't know that there were business networking events. I didn't know anything about it. As simple as it sounds, they tell you in their curriculum, go on meetup.com and start investigating where are they meeting, right? And then eventually you will find the right people who you want to be associated with.
Shout out to JD. Shout out to Than and JD for putting this together and bringing this conversation together.
Yeah. I mean, they're fantastic. And I just feel that, that was the biggest takeaway from Fortune Builders for me, networking, find the right people. And when I was, sometime when I was thinking in my head, hey, what am I really good at? And one man like shine a light. He's like, Mark, you are really good at networking and bringing people together and connecting the dots. I'm really good at it. Like,
Yeah.
like for example, tomorrow night we have at my hotel private dinner for 24 successful real estate entrepreneurs. And we're just going to sit together. We're going to dine together and talk about, the growth, about the things we had to overcome in the business, and maybe do deals together.
Heck. Harrison, look like your wheels are turning.
I was just thinking, it's funny that we're kind of spoiled. Like we sort of drank the Kool-Aid of like those like that like sort of go-getter mentality very early in our careers with student painters early on, like in college. But sometimes I feel like that I'm almost only surrounded. Like I'm like, oh, I'm one. Oh, everyone wants, you know, uh, like everyone I know has like wants to start a podcast, right? Or like not everyone wants to start a podcast, but like I just sometimes I feel like I'm. Oh well, everyone I know is a successful real estate broker. Like why? Like why? Yeah, I almost feel like diluted, right? In a sense, kind of from the opposite perspective. Like I'm not around too many people that are successful, but I sort of have forgotten that that probably the vast majority of the world are people that are not in that mindset. So I'm like almost been too spoiled that I've been so surrounded by people over the years that want to be successful in business or real estate or financially or whatever. Um, that it makes I feel not as special anymore.
I think that just means count your blessings. We're very fortunate to be around rock stars and to network with new rock stars like Mark. I'm truthfully a little jelly of this this awesome dinner party, and I want Harrison and I to be invited to another one. We will buy our plates, and we would love to come down and check this out sometime. That's so cool. Is this your first dinner?
Yeah, so as I have the hospitality business, ultimately I have a very unique hotel, but it's tucked away in a very desirable area. So ultimately everything's about sales and marketing. So my goal is like to bring there as many people as possible. Recently, one gentleman who got married at my property, he's a private chef. He approached me. He's like, "Hey, let's do business together," right? So ultimately, I gotta find enough people to sell private dinners at my estate at a certain price point where he makes money, I make money, and I can capitalize on building my network. So last month we did like just fully, all business owners. This month it's all related to real estate investors. And I'm just gonna build it like month over a month. But if you gentlemen ever have time, drive from Massachusetts down to my hotel, we'll do um, we'll do the dinner. What we also do, we have a Swedish sauna we build on the property with cold plunges. So we're gonna do like special 4 rounds of sauna and cold plunges, and then that makes you super relaxed. And then we're gonna have dinner and just have a good time.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Well, I got some family. I'm actually originally from New Jersey. I didn't grow up there. My parents moved me down to South Carolina when I was 9, but I still have some family over there in Elizabeth and the Freehold area. So yeah, I'll come make a trip. That'd be awesome. We'd love to shoot some video for you as well. And I think you're you're the first hotel owner I think we've ever met. Do you know any other owners, Harrison?
No, well, no, I do. There's a guy in our like Boston network that has done some hotels. I don't think he's around here anymore. Um, but no, it's rare. It it comes up a lot in conversation, but there's not as many people that are actually doing it in practice.
Yeah,
Does your hotel have a website?
Yes, it's
Uh,
chimneyhillestate.com. Like chimney on the house.
mhm.
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, uh, ultimately,
Oh wow.
the story about the hotel. Basically, I came up with this idea about 4 years ago that I felt that the new generation of millennials, they're not gonna be able to afford small homes. I'm sorry, to afford the homes because price is just going, through the roof. So I'm like, let's start marketing to hotels, motels, and start chopping them into small units for the younger generation. That was the ultimate goal. So we came across this estate, and we're like, what a great way to start and just kick off the Airbnb business and do more with the short term rental. And it was on the market for $1.2 million, and we pretty much uh, fully funded it by private money. We raised the $400,000 in private money, and then we got the rest with the bank.
Wow.
I want to stay here. Hope you're okay that I'm sharing this.
So
Sorry, Annette.
it's a 9-acre farm, and it has the building in front, which is a 210 years old colonial home, and then it has a 6,000 square feet barn with like luxury suites.
It's amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. Do you think you're going to do more of these?
So, as you gentlemen know, once you get the real estate and once you kind of prove yourselves in the market, like the potential, the deals, the things, they just come to your plate like organically. You don't have to do much for them. Once you really prove yourself, right? Especially like Alex, I saw you on Fortune Builders, like I saw what you guys done in the past. I'm sure that there were sometimes deals they just kind of came to your plate. You're like, wow, that's awesome. Or are they sometimes people come to you and say, can you help me evaluate this? Right. So the other day, because I had the hotel, gentleman called me who I did some business together. I hosted one of his property. He's like, Mark, you have to see this property. So he brought me to a property called the Dreamland. It's in Freehold area. It's a 100-acre farm. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And funny thing is, when I started this $1.2 million deal, I was like, I'm getting myself over my head with the numbers, right? Now this lady literally wants me to control this property. She wants me to be her partner on it because she's so Chimney Hill, and she's like, everybody's kind of wasting her time, and she inherited. She wants me to control almost $2 million at like a 2% interest rate. Like I can control $2 million at $40,000 a year, with like a $1,700 mortgage payment, 100-acre farm with like 5 buildings on it, 16 stalls. The property needs a lot of work, like inside, like spruce up the bathrooms, spruce up like the painting. The homes are in decent conditions, but very old-fashioned, right? But the word Dreamland, I mean, gentlemen, like if you would come to that property, it looks super special. I mean, I've never been to the people who passed away and she inherited the property from, they must have spent fortune on the property. I mean, the landscaping must be worth millions of dollars. And I don't know if you've ever been to Italy. It looks like Tuscany, but it's in Freehold, New Jersey.
Dude, shout out to New Jersey.
Wow.
It's in the horse country, and you basically the gate opens up and it has these big trees, big trees one after another, and you're just going through a big alleyway until you arrive into this like beautiful estate. It has a plaza for parties, is a big greenhouse. It has 4 different homes on the property. And she started at $4.5 million. We are down to $2 million in negotiation. And she's like, I want to do business with you and your wife.
Wow. Yeah, New Jersey can get a bad rap, but there are a lot of hidden gems in New Jersey.
I have to say, Germans, like New Jersey has everything you need when it comes to the ocean, the mountains, not that far. Freehold is the horse country, so there, a lot of land and farms, really beautiful. So yeah, I mean, I don't even like, I'm not even looking for deals. It's just kind of, once you put yourself out there, just people, hey, Mark, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about that? And I'm not going to lie, having the hotel, that just kind of opens up much more doors because like you have much bigger credibility, oh, he's done this. Well, let me show him, what about this? What about that?
Wow.
Cool. I have some questions about your hotel, your Chimney Hill Estates. So you said you bought that for 2.1 million?
No, 1.2.
1.2. Okay, cool. So you bought it for 1.2. When was that? Like,
So we are right now in the business 2.5 years.
okay.
I'm sorry, 3.5 years. It was a 1 year renovation. So 3.5
Got
years.
it. Okay,
Mhm.
so that was my next question. So it sounds like you bought it like 2022, 2021.
Yeah.
1.2 million. There was a year's worth of renovation. So was it heavily distressed? Was it in operation? What was your renovation scope like?
Yes. So I have to say that because we've never done anything on such a scale, we heavily underestimated the construction cost. Okay. It's about 10,000 square feet of living space between all the buildings. And our original budget was about $450,000. Because the property had a great bones, it was everything all very dated, but it looked more like a replacement in kind
Mhm.
until we started really opening up the walls and start seeing the issues, like how much issues is on the property. So, what happens with one of the largest deals, if you don't have a cushion in your bank account, I mean, the $400,000 was a basically budget from the bank, which put the money on the side, right? And they're like, every time you do this part of the project, we're gonna release the draw. So the 400,000 went really quickly. And then what now? We gotta get this to the finish line. It's do or die. So we end up spending about $900,000. And once we open up the doors, we were 1 year uh, in the construction loan, which is only for a year, and the bank was calling the loan due. And as good as I'm at networking, I found somebody within a couple of weeks who wrote a check for $2 million.
Nice.
They wipe up the entire loan for $2 million. I'm not gonna lie, the percentage is crazy. We know what we generally pay. We pay 10%, 5%, no points. So he wrote a check at $2 million at 12%. So the mortgage payment was $20,000 a month.
Wow. And then
And
you were able to lease up the rooms and cover that until I think you just said you just refinanced it, right?
correct. So we open up the business. We knew that the demand is there for the rooms in the area, and we started building a little by little. We actually really luckily I found a client in 2023, Apple Production, and they booked the entire hotel for 3 months, and there was $170,000 contract.
That
So
felt pretty good.
yeah.
This,
Yeah.
this podcast is full of wins.
It just
Yeah.
made me feel good. So I can only imagine how good it made you feel at the time.
Gentlemen, if we have enough time, we can go into what not to do. Okay, I have some of those, but luckily, I have to say we talked about it before this podcast. A lot of times I just go for it like a bulldog. I don't really overthink things. I think there were many different people who looked at this estate and they're like, this is going to be a crazy money pit. We're not touching it. Let somebody else deal with this. And, 3 years fast forward, I just got the letter of intent. We just pay $5,000 for commercial appraisal. And by the end of the month, we should have $2.6 million refi finished. And we're gonna get after closing costs about $500,000 check.
That's cool.
Which is tax free, right? As we all
Yep.
know.
So they
Yeah.
appraised it for what? Probably in the $4 million range.
Yeah. So great question. So the appraisal is coming. They're starting this Thursday. It has to be 3.6 or higher to get the $2.6 million. If it's less, we're not gonna get we're not gonna get $2.6 million. But what it does for us, the mortgage payment is gonna be less. Right now, the rate is 6.75%. So our mortgage payment on $2.6 million loan is gonna be $18,000 a month. So we're gonna get a $500,000 check. Plus, we're dropping our mortgage payment to 18 versus 20.
What we do a lot of multifamily, so straightforward, studios, ones, twos, and threes, mid-size apartment buildings. We've done some smaller multifamily, but most of our buildings now are, 10 to 20 units in size. So my question is, on the, we are typically seeing expense ratios in the, um, depends on the quality of your building, but, somewhere in the range of 30 to 40%. Our buildings are a little older, so they require a little more maintenance. And some costs in our market tend to be a little more expensive, like insurance. So we're closer to 40% expense ratio, which is about as high as you normally see for multifamily. So my question is, sort of in the hotel business, in the hospitality business, what is, like, if you're ballparking a deal, what do you typically see, as your expense ratio? And for to clarify for anyone, an expense ratio would be like if your building rents, generates $10,000 a month in rental revenue, and if you're like us and you have, say, a 40% expense ratio, then your total expenses for that month are about $4,000, and your net operating income would be about 6,000. So in the hotel business, what do you normally see?
But do you calculate the expenses after the property is renovated, or do you calculate it like
Yeah,
when
let's say after renovations. So like after your, CapEx improvements.
I mean, we
You're
generally and as expenses, you're talking insurance, what kind of expenses in a hotel? One of my big expense is marketing, right? So
Mhm.
I signed a marketing team and I pay them 2,200 a month. I did not have a marketing team before. Excuse me. I didn't have a marketing team before, but now I pay about $2,200 a month just for marketing.
Yep.
The the cost of the insurance for the property is about $24,000 a year because we have multiple buildings. But the property on its own, because it's all fixed up, does not have as many expenses as as you get the building and then you have to repair everything. But we've been doing a lot of we were adding a lot of different type of buildings. We both built the sauna and we just rebuilt the barn for the animals. So, we continuously like expanding and reinvesting the money. For us, it's really hard to tell, like, what is that, percentage of the expense because we constantly
Right.
rebuild it. I think year 2025, that's where the property is going to be like completely finished. So we can just kind of look at the books and say, look, this is what we're gonna be annually spending on expenses. And then
Gotcha.
I'm also kind of split testing, is this marketing company doing what they're supposed to do versus the other company who's approaching me for year two. There's a lot of marketing professionals and they all set everything on a search optimization and they think their job is over, and you might be paying $2,000 a month for something. Somebody's gonna tweak a couple words on your website. I'm just like, this is not what I signed up for. I have a website and I have a hotel, and you guys have to bring the traffic to my property.
Right. So their response, primarily you're delegating that responsibility of attracting the clients to that marketing firm. That's their primary role.
Yeah, that's the primary role because as we started really growing, I'm like, man, I can't just be sitting and posting on Facebook and all the social media, other things like, I mean, that's not scalable. Let me find
Right.
professional. Let me focus on bringing more clients to the property. I'll let the professionals handle the website. I mean, right now, people are calling and they're like, we find you online. You are one of the first hotels showing up, in the search when you type New Hope, Lambertville. So it is positive, but they're saying 3 to 5 years before you really see the fruits of your labor. When
Sure.
people they know, hey, Chimney Hill is a destination, because we have a lot of there's a lot of hotels in town, right on the strip. So that's our competition, and we are off the strip, still walking distance to town, but people don't know we exist sometime.
Got it.
You said if we had enough time, we can talk about what not to do. I don't think we need to unhash all of what not to do, but did you ever have moments of like fear or doubt where you're like, is this for me? I don't know if this is for me. And if you did, how did you push through them?
Great question. So, as we basically all of us entered the curriculum of Fortune Builders, they started teaching us about wholesaling, flipping, buy and hold. Ultimately, for me, it was always about the buy and hold, but I definitely tried the route of the fix and flip. And I have to say, that's been always a challenge for me, either picking up the right contractors, either scaling it, and getting the right product right so it actually sells on the market and you can actually capitalize. So what happened was prior COVID, as I started building my network and people started seeing, what I built in the past, people started approaching me, becoming a business partner or financial partner in some of the deals. And I got into building new construction homes in the city of Philadelphia. But because I was so busy on my end doing my flips and always having challenges, like, let me put my baskets in somebody's hands. I'm sorry, not let me put my eggs in somebody's hands who knows what they're doing. So I partnered up with reputable builder in the city of Philly, and he was producing beautiful products, beautiful. But I've never really done my due diligence on his financials. How is he really, funding the deals? Is he really producing them on time? Because as we know, time is money, and as we borrowing money at high interest rates, if we don't get them finished on time, sometimes the time can really eat all the profits. So fast forward, during the COVID, they basically shut down the entire city of Philadelphia, and we couldn't even touch the product and the homes, and the interest they were just accumulating, for almost a year. So we got foreclosed on almost 4 or 5 homes. I lost a lot of money. And what did I do really to push through? I closed that chapter. I lost the money. I'm like, that's only just money. And I just went back to work, got into what I know best, multifamilies, because maybe you will agree or disagree. Even if you make the construction mistakes in multifamilies, and you rent them over time, it will just pay back. The time will pay back. But with flips, you make mistakes, you over budget, you are over budget, or you underestimate the project, and then you don't have the right buyer. You might be doing multiple, and the rewards are not as good. So I feel like with the multifamilies, make the mistakes, but rent them, and then over time you will just refinance, get your money out. So that's been always my business model. Like I said, if I could, we talked about it, but if I could mentor somebody, get into multifamilies, small duplexes, triplexes, try to find them at a discount and start your journey this way. It's almost like it's hard to really lose money, like if you have that right mindset in multifamily housing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the it's definitely the saving grace. I mean, we experienced a handful of challenges, like a series of dominoes through COVID and all these delays. And you're right, when you're renovating something that needs, some value improvement, and you're borrowing expensive capital to do it, and they get delayed, it's just you're right. It can erode basically all the profit of the deal, especially if it's a short term flip. And one of the saving graces, I think, for a lot of people is that, it is what it is. There's just not enough housing pretty much wherever you go. And it's getting more expensive, like you're saying. And I think you're right. I think less people are buying, they're buying less homes, and they're going to go to more smaller, intimate, maybe communal style living apartments. A lot of people are saying, why do I even buy at this point when I can rent in a nice building for less than the cost of ownership and have a better lifestyle? So yeah, that's awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, what is a piece of advice that you would give to, somebody who's young, or not young, but getting maybe young to the business, and they want to get started and they want to break in. What's that first piece of advice you'd give them to get some traction going?
So I do believe the education is the key. I'm very thankful for Fortune Boss community. So if someone does not have obviously you don't have to pay for the education. Everything's on YouTube. And if you can extract all the information from YouTube, good for you. We choose the other way. We choose to pay the tuition. And that's how we started our journey. If I could give somebody a piece of advice, I said, find somebody who's successful in real estate and shadow them, try to bring value to them, and they will eventually hold your hand and will try to really, take you to the next level. I have to say that, I found a business partner about 4 or 5 years ago through Men's Work. It's an organization when men are helping other men through their struggles. And I took his hand and, I made him literally over the period of 4 years, successful real estate investor. But he brought a value. I have to say, he's a network engineer. He has a lot of different skills. So you always have to bring value to someone in order to get value back.
What was the name of that networking group, Men Helping Other Men?
It's called the Men's Work.
Men's Work.
Yeah, we have them in New Jersey. I'm sure there are probably in Massachusetts. I can find out. It's just a men meeting bi-weekly around the fire, like in back all days. And we're doing many different exercises. And it's just us as a man, we generally don't like to share our struggles. So you go into very confidential space and you share your struggles with other men, and they're trying to help you and push through those struggles. And there have been some very powerful moments in those groups where, sometimes you have some really big pain from your childhood and you don't like to share it with anybody. And those other men, they can either share the same story or they try to help you push through those struggles.
Wow. Thank you. I think somebody listening to this, I think that's going to resonate with them. And what a wonderful resource. We're going to check that out. That sounds great. Harrison. Harrison, I know keeping everybody close to this 1 p.m. Any last final words or questions you want to go before we send Marek off to take over the rest of New Jersey?
Can't wait for the next dinner. Normally when someone says they have a hotel, I'm like, yeah, okay, you have a nice modest hotel. Like, I'm sure it's nice, whatever. But then I saw your website and I'm like, oh damn, it's got a hotel.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen,
I live amongst the horses too, so out here in farm country. So I have an affinity for those types of properties.
That's awesome. Well, I have to say, I hope this is not the end of our relationship, just this podcast. Hopefully we can continue this conversation, and and I wish you best of luck with this podcast journey. I think what you guys do is great. And hopefully, if you have some time, we can meet up.
Mark, you're in for at least 2 more podcasts, brother. You don't know it yet, but you're going to be in it, and we're going to take a trip down to New Jersey. There may be more than one. I want to check out some of these deals that you're doing, and grab some lunch. And we really appreciate you coming on the Wollaston REI TV and talk radio show. This was really exciting to have you, and we appreciate you sharing a bit of your story, and we wish you the best of luck with everything that you're doing. I think 2025 is going to be a really bright year for you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. Harrison, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys.
Awesome. Hey,
Thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
a wonderful afternoon. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.